Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Gray here. Thank you again for another great week. It's not your imagination. Just as I pressed the record button, the sunlight is bouncing right off the NPR and coming through a small window between the posters that I have up and the wall and just lighting me perfectly. So how fortunate we are for that. We have a great week coming up. There's lots of things going on. We're into February already. February is a quick month, and just we kind of like are moving closer, are marching closer. The 100th day of school is next week, so there's a lot going on. Global School Play Day is Wednesday, February 5th. It means we play all day. The kids will go to science lab like they normally do on Wednesday morning, and then we will play inside our classroom, we'll play outside our classroom, we'll play inside our classroom, we'll play outside our classroom. If the kids want to bring like board games that are school appropriate, they can do that. It's also a no screens day, which is a great reset for everyone. So, talk to your students about that, but they can certainly bring that. You can bring a blanket to kind of lay out and, play with other students if they want to in class. Of course, anytime you bring something to school, there's a risk of things getting lost, broken, damaged, things like that. Even just because of accidents, there's a lot of bodies in a small place, but they can do that. And it's a really, really fun day. Other announcements of things coming up in the semi-near future. There's no school Monday, February 17th. We'll do Read Across America Day on Wednesday, March 5th, and that is a read all day day. So we'll talk about that more later. And then the Jogathon is Friday, March 7th. Spring conferences are March 17th to the 21st. The last thing I would say is we're doing PE, physical fitness testing. All the fifth graders in the state of California get tested on some different physical skills. We are probably doing those. We'll do some like practice rounds and some tests on Fridays. I'll try to give the kids a heads up about when we're doing the mile run so they can bring appropriate clothes. But typically Friday is not a PE day, although we do kind of extra recess on Friday. So that might be another day to kind of wear a little bit more like athletic clothing, just in case we do some of the PE testing. So over the month of February and March, we'll be doing that, practicing and actually doing the testing. Spring conferences are March 17th through 21st. We'll talk about that later. In reading next week, we're going to go into the next phase of our historical fiction. The first one was I read out loud the book Heroes by Alan Gratz. That'll be finished by the time we get to next week. And then the second thing that happened was we read Esperanza Rising. And so those are both these really great stories that the author uses the historical setting to tell us something important. And so that's just getting us ready for what we're going to start next week, which is American Revolution book clubs. The kids are going to be in book clubs and they're going to have to organize them. And so they're going to set the schedule and develop discussion topics and hold each other accountable for participation. And so they're going to take what they've learned in historical fiction, apply it to these American Revolution book clubs and then run it themselves, which is great. I will not be reading out loud a book next week, but we'll have another one coming up pretty soon. The students are writing a letter right now and writing to their congressional representative, who is Dave Min. He was just recently elected, just started in the month of January. He lives in Irvine. And so we've been working on how to do it. The biggest thing, if you talk to your students, is one of the things that is so hard for fifth graders is to tap into this like formal, like what is formal, and like why would I have to be formal, and what does that include? How does the language that I use matter? And so that's really the focus of that, is just, I'm not trying to put in a little funny joke that's me. I have to take this thing seriously if I want to be listened to. And we're right on the cusp of the age where students are that's really important to them. And so we're trying to practice that. Some of your students are not ready for that. It's too hard to take something very seriously. And so this is a practice routine for that. And some students are ready and are dying to take something really seriously and have someone important look at it. So we're running the gamut in class, but it's a great conversation to have with your students about growing up and being more independent and having a voice of your own, and how to send that voice out into the world in a way that the audience takes you seriously. And so that's a really important thing that we're working on. Next week, the kids are going to meet with one of their peers to kind of look at the writing and give a little bit of feedback. And then we'll also finish the writing. We're doing a little bit backwards than we normally do. Normally we write on paper and make edits and write on paper, and then we type it. In this case, it was the opposite. We're organizing it on a document and typing, and we're going to have peer feedback like that. And then they're going to handwrite it once they get it exactly the way they want it. They're going to handwrite it, and we're going to send it off in the mail next week. So it'll be really great. In math, the kids have a couple of things going on. Before we start our actual next big unit, which is all about measurement and conversions, we're going to celebrate the 100th day of school. If you started school in kindergarten, it's also your 1000th day of school. In 5th grade. So that's pretty cool. And then the thing we're going to use is there's a new online tool that the students haven't really gotten to use yet, but we're going to use it next week as a test run for other teachers at Santiago Hills. And so you might hear about that. It's called Snorkel. It's really interesting. In social studies, we're still working on our road to revolution. The kids are looking at the most important events leading up to the American Revolution, why on earth this even happened, why, the British colonies didn't just remain British, which as we're looking into the events more and more seems like maybe it should have. It's an interesting kind of quirk of history that it didn't happen that way. It seemed like pretty easy that they could have done that. But anyway, next week we're gonna cover the First Continental Congress and the battles of Lexington and Concord. They're gonna add those to their digital timeline. They're creating this big portfolio of events, and then of course their Great State Project is due on Friday. We'll try to work in a little bit of time during the week to finish things up, but for the most part, they don't have really more time in class to work on it. So hopefully, if you're talking with your child, you're thinking about, okay, what do I need to get done and how can I split it up over the week because it's due on Friday. Okay. In Science Lab, there'll be witnesses to Marco, and we're also taking a test. We've been talking about how changes to ecosystems can affect the ecosystem, and they're taking a test in our class next week about that. We're working on Greek and Latin roots. The kids will get their second list of words, and we'll also do a review, not next week, but the week after. They'll take a test on the 2 lessons of Greek and Latin roots. We'll work with our buddies, and then of course, physical fitness testing. So as always, there's a million things going on. The last thing I would say is now that we're into February, we're starting to approach the end of the second trimester already, which means that by the end of February, it'll be finished. So in the next couple weeks, things are going to wrap up. There's not going to be too many more changes to the grade book at this point. And we're already kind of going to be making a transition in the middle of February toward the end to kind of stuff that's starting in the 3rd trimester. So keep that in mind. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.